Live from the House of LeMay Makeup and Dressing Room.
Here comes Amber. Stop what you're doing. Here comes Amber. She's just doing what she can. Here comes Amber. Cue the spotlight. Here comes Amber with 2 drinks in her hand. But make me a confession. Secrets to her glasses. You can't look away. Ask her, does she do it? There's really nothing to it. She's got that feminine game. It can have a party, or if you're feeling naughty, call up the House of LeMay. Here comes your favorite gal. Here comes your queen. Here comes the talk of the town. And we're live tonight. The music starts playing. It's time for cabaret. And we're live tonight.
The epicenter of this year's earthquake was Trump's Bedminster Golf Course / cemetery. So you might want to keep that in mind if you're burying your ex-wife beside a Diet Coke machine that steals your change, because it may result in earthquakes and slower Bible sales.
My sister was auditioning for Oliver in the high school show, and she was a senior and I was in 6th grade, and she said, wouldn't it be fun if you came in and auditioned for this and we could do my last year together? And I did, and then I got called back for Oliver, and then I got the understudy for Oliver. And I tell this story all the time. Our producer, one of the producers at the school, said to my mother, and they called me Bobby back then, they're like, Bobby was great, but he was just too healthy looking to play Oliver. I was like, no one asked. No one asked. We were all fine with what we got.
Hi, Amber from Broadway Antique Market in Chicago.
What's up, dude? This is Rusty Peen. Welcome you to the Amber Live Show. But before we go any further, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And now it's time for the news. What's up, bud? Welcome to The Alternative Writer. I'm Rusty Peen, and here comes the news. Dude, John Wayne Bobbitt is back in the news. He's getting all of his toes on one foot amputated. Every time we hear the name John Wayne Bobbitt, it's always because he's getting some part of his body cut off or other. Now, dude, this wouldn't even be a news story except that 30 years ago, John Wayne Bobbitt got his peen cut off by his then-wife Lorena Bobbitt, and then she threw it out of a car window. 30 years later, John Wayne Bobbitt's getting his toes amputated. The reason cited is that he drank contaminated water at the Camp Lejeune military base in the 1980s. And in case you were wondering, and I know you are, the doctors were able to reattach his peen after they found it. But that's more than I can say about his toes. In Australia, a guy on an airplane received a $395 fine for offensive behavior after he peed into a cup while waiting to deplane. The incident was reported to the flight crew by the woman sitting next to him after she heard, quote, the unmistakable sound of the passenger urinating in a cup. The woman also said that the dude was obviously quite drunk, as he ended up spilling his pee onto one of the flight attendants as he was leaving the plane. Dude, when you gotta go, but don't be sloppy about it. On the other hand, the hand that's not covered in pee. Who's this woman sitting next to him? This Karen from the Pee Patrol, who knows the sound of piss hitting a cup when she hears it. I'd be curious to know, what other sources of pee are you so accustomed to, Karen from the Pee Patrol? Oh, dude, that's the unmistakable sound of a guy pissing in a bucket. Or, dude, that's the unmistakable sound of a rich dude pissing in a top hat. Or, dude, that's the unmistakable sound of Miles Davis pissing in a trumpet. And speaking of body functions, former President Donald Trump has appeared in court for his New York criminal case. And reporters were initially saying that he was falling asleep in the courtroom. But what's now being reported is that as he's nodding off, he's letting out some stanky farts. So think about that the next time you say to yourself, this trial stinks. Or better yet, try it yourself the next time you get jury duty. That's all the time we have for the news today. I'm Rusty Peen, your alternative writer. Dun, 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 dun. Dude, let's get Russell in here. Russell, come on in.
Hey, Rusty, how are you?
Hey, bud, I'm doing okay. How are you doing, dude?
Pretty good. How many beers in are you tonight?
I don't know. More beers than John Wayne Bobbitt can count on one of his feet.
That's not many beers anymore.
Well, it's more than he can count.
Well, that's true. That's true. And it could be 100 more than that.
No
It's
kidding,
just more. Anywho,
what's the best place that we can watch this show?
That's a good question, because I always wonder that, and I know that our guests or our viewers wonder that sometimes too, and they should be watching on YouTube at youtube.com/AmberLive. And the reason for that is there you get to see Rusty Peen in full HD, to see all the glory, all the red eye, and you get a great chat room with all your friends in it, talking about the show, talking about all the things that are going on in their lives. So come on over to YouTube, and when you're done there, when the show's over, check out our TikTok, our Instagram, our Facebook pages, and even our amazing website, amberlive.tv. You won't be sorry. And let's say you have to miss a show and you want to listen to it on the way to work. Where can you do that? You can listen to the interview part of the show as the Amber Live interviews everywhere that great podcasts are available. So we recommend that if you can't watch Rusty live.
Dude, that's pretty sweet, especially when I'm driving in my pick-em-up truck and going to the Bottle Redemption Center trying to get some extra cash.
And that's your typical morning run?
Yeah, bud. It's 7 a.m., first thing in the day.
Are you the first one in line there?
Hell yeah, dude.
All right.
Got to spend the rest of the day drinking to get those nickels.
Well, you know how we got some nickels here at Amber Live?
Dude, how do we get all those nickels?
Well, we have a group of people we call the Bustiers, and we love our Bustiers. They help us pay the bills, but we need more Bustiers because we do have bills coming in all the time. So please become a Bustier. I can't say that enough. We will appreciate it highly. Use your Venmo at RJD Pro to make a donation, or you can go to amberlive.tv and you can help out the Bustiers and become a Bustier right there using your credit card. And that is really important to keeping this whole thing running because it's expensive, people. Please.
Yeah, dude, I got to pay for all those beers somehow, so keep sending us in the money.
I promise none of it's going to Rusty Peen's beers. He's only doing that off of his redemption money.
It's true. He ain't lying, and it's really hard for me to redeem myself. Russell, who's on the show tonight?
Oh, my goodness. We have a great guest tonight. As always, we keep finding them. And this is Amie Vanité. And Amie is the drag queen who started the Pennsylvania chapter of Drag Story Hour. And she was going along, doing fine. Everything was great. And then she started getting some people following her who were kind of protesting her, but weren't so bad. And then recently, she was doing a drag story hour in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a place where I've been many times.
You know all about Lancaster.
I do. And there was a bomb threat made. And so they ended up having to cancel it, and apparently blocks of the downtown area had to be shut down, and it was a real mess. So you'll get to hear all about Amie, the good work she does, see her perform a little bit tonight, and you'll get to hear the story of what happened in Lancaster and what the mysterious package was that they found.
Dude, I'm super stoked. I can't wait to hear that story.
Well, you know how we can hear it. Let's get Amber rolling.
Let's get into it, bud. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, we interviewed filmmaker James Lantz about his podcast concerning the multiple suicides of trans youth in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. In a side conversation, he also told us about a drag queen story hour in Lancaster that had to be canceled because of bomb threats. He hooked us up with the hostess of the drag story hour, Amie Vanité, and we're going to talk to her tonight. But first, let's watch this.
Welcome and bienvenue, welcome from the étranger, stranger, live on Rusty stay dragon.
Welcome to Drag Queen Story Hour with Miss Amie. I'm here again. Stonewall. A building, an uprising. Two stable houses, side by side. For more than 100 years, we witnessed history. Then came a night when we became part of history. I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle dove. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. And I like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand, and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today, oh yeah.
Wow, why am I suddenly wanting a bottle of Coca-Cola? I'm not sure. But Amie, come on in.
Hello.
Oh, that song I remember so well, and it did start off as a commercial for Coca-Cola. And
Yes.
but I love the song anyway. So, Amie, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Before we get started about the mess that happened for your Drag Queen Story Hour, tell us a little about you. When did you start doing drag and why?
I started doing drag just after high school. I was a musical theater geek like my whole life, and I just happened to kind of fall into it when we were playing around with some makeup and doing some things, and I was like, oh my goodness, I look really, really good. And then like later on through high school realized people did this like for a living. So I figured, what the heck, I'll add it into my little acting umbrella. And I started doing it for the love of theater and the love of entertaining people. And it's been over 20 years now.
Tell us about some of your first gigs.
Some of my first gigs were in the tiniest little places that were like hours away. So it was a lot of travel time with friends and rehearsing your music while you're in the car. My actual first show, well, Amie's first public appearance happened in high school during our senior talent show, which was pretty hysterical. Some of the football players came out in like half drag, and we all did a chorus line like together, and it was adorable. But my first real gig in like an establishment happened by accident. I showed up with friends to someone's birthday party, and entertainers didn't show up, and they're like, well, you're ready to go. Can you do something? And I was like, yep. So I did.
What did you do?
I did Bring on the Men from Jekyll and Hyde.
Wow. You were prepared.
I was.
So where did it go from there? When did you start doing it regularly, and where?
Regularly, probably, let's see, 2010, 2009, I guess, 2008. Yeah, 2008. I was just doing things here and there, having some little cameo parts in local like ballet productions and other theater productions if they needed somebody who was pretty in a dress that wasn't a lady. And we, at that point here in Berks County, only had one LGBT establishment left at that point. It was called the Red Star. So I was regularly performing there starting in 2008, after I'd performed at Reading Pride's first official Pride Festival in 2007. And by 2010, I was Miss Red Star. That was my first title, my first real title. I had some other silly titles before then, but yeah.
Where is Lancaster or Reading in Pennsylvania? Give us a geographical lesson.
Like kind of south central. Lancaster's about a half an hour south from where I am in the Reading area.
So it's not really a popular or population of a lot of blue voting people.
Surprisingly, we are. Where I live in West Reading, we're quite blue. Same with like in the city itself. And Lancaster City is incredibly blue. So for what was going on, we'd never expected anything like what happened to happen.
When did you start doing your drag queen story hour?
I started doing story hour here. I was Pennsylvania's first official chapter to start up. There were some other people who were kind of doing it freelance, but they weren't under the like corporate headquarter umbrella sort of thing. So I started that in 2018 after I had like heard some hubbub of it like moving over this way. Because the program started in 2015, I believe, in San Francisco. So it finally made its way over here. And then I caught some wind and I was like, wait a minute, I could do this. So I reached out to some of my theater people. We have a very large network of people we know to see if somebody knew somebody in the library system. And a friend of mine was like, hey, I just have this librarian friend who is wondering how we do story hour around here. And the librarian had reached out to Reading Pride, and Reading Pride recommended me. And then my friend got the two of us hooked up, and she was like, oh my God, it's you. And I was like, hi, it's me. And had a couple of meetings, planned out a program. And then she was like, it's your baby. Have fun. Bye.
So how frequently were you doing it back then?
Usually when I first started, the first official program was at Reading Pride that year in 2018. Then I did it at Lehigh Valley Pride, and I started doing like smaller little gigs. We have kind of like in West Reading, we have like a main strip that's a couple of blocks with like different street festivals throughout the year. So I'm friends with a lot of people who work. I've worked a lot of different places, helping out, shop sitting and this and that. And just kind of reached out to my friends, and I was like, hey, like I'm starting this program. Would you mind if I like, popped over to your shop, like, at some point throughout the day and like did a little, song and, read a book or two, and then like kind of moved around up and down the avenue for those kind of things. And then by 2019, I started doing things in the libraries, and that's when the people started getting angry.
So you've been doing this for over 5 years. 6 years. 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Your math is better than mine. Very good. 6 years.
I can only count to 8 though, because I'm a dancer.
How do you select your books that you read?
I got most of my initial suggestions from librarians who, knew what kind of books would be appropriate. And then the longer I've been doing it, being in the network, authors who write books have reached out to me and just asked if I would read them, and they'd send me a copy. And I've been at places performing, and someone comes up to me and I wrote a book. Will you read it? And I was like, yes. And I work pretty closely with Sunny Dean. She's a fantastic author. Two of my favorite books that I usually read at every program. One is The Yellow Square of Stonewall, which is kind of a dumbed down version of like the riots, based around like blue circles and pink triangles, and yellow square doesn't fit in, but then finds Stonewall where everyone is a different shape and size and color, and she found her home. The other one that Sunny Dean wrote that I love is One Equals Many. And that book is just so simple, but so poignant. I just feel the need to read it like at every story hour that I do.
All right. You had a bomb threat recently at one of your readings, and we're going to talk about that right after this break. We'll be right back.
Wow, dude, that was pretty exciting stuff in the first half. Can't wait to see what comes next in the interview. But first, let's get Russell back in here. Russell, come back.
Rusty, I'm back.
You're back, dude. Dude, did you know that we have a store here for Amber Live?
I do. I talk about it a lot, almost as much as the Bustiers, and I would love for people to visit it because we have so many great products there. There's Amber products, Rusty products, there's Pride products, there's Rocco Zamboni products, and we've got a great collection from Dwayne Scott Cierney of the Vintage Confidential products, and that's all on the amberlive.tv website. Just go to amberlive.tv and look for the shop for merch column or in the navigation, and you'll be all set. You'll be loving it.
Dude, what was that about the Bustiers again? Because I spaced out when you said it the first time, and I gotta hear it again.
I said we need Bustiers. So if you'd like to be a Bustier, just join us using that Venmo at RJD Pro, or go to amberlive.tv and use your credit card to become a Bustier. But you can also go to that store if you'd like to help us out there at amberlive.tv. That's where it's all happening, folks.
Sweet, dude. There's lots of ways to give money to this show, and you get a lot of value out of it. You can get my face on your mug, and you get to keep watching all these great interviews. Speaking of, it's about to pick up for the next part of the interview.
Here it is.
All right, we're back with Amie Vanité, and we're talking about Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and her drag queen story hour. All right, in our first segment, you talked about you've been doing this since 2018, and then you moved into the libraries in 2019, and that's when there was starting to be some rumblings. Tell us about that.
So it didn't materialize that quickly. It took a few months. My first library gig was at Wyomissing's public library, beautiful little space. And then there was a big news article that a reporter had done, like interviewed me beforehand, and then came to the event to, write more about what was, happening with the photographer who took pictures. And they published in that article my next two scheduled ones, which were going to be in Sinking Spring and in Exeter. So they started showing up. It was the day the article came out was the day before I was going to be at Sinking Spring. So we got there. The library director said that there were some people there. They had been getting complaints and whatever, and they were there to pray and like not be disruptive, but it's a public space, so they allowed them to be there. They weren't terrible. And then after that, my next one in Exeter, we had quite the rumbling. There was a lot of people very angry and upset, yelling things and bullhorns and MAGA hats and crusade flags and bagpipes. And I was all very confused with what was happening. I got there before anything really materialized. But it's kind of this one main group that tends to follow me around. They're not violent people. They don't condone any sort of violence at all. They're just very uber religious, and it's all men, which is also confusing. And they're just, at this point, they're just really annoying, like noise that we have to kind of tune out as best we can.
So did this follow you? That was in 2019.
Yes.
Did it continue until the most recent one?
Yes. They did show up. The last time I really had to deal with them, I was doing a Tea Party event in Hanover, which is about an hour or so from Lancaster, so further south. And they showed up to this tea party. There had been like flyers put out, like advertising, where I was going to be, used my name, didn't use a picture of me at all, but like used my name. And they've also published some lovely literature on their website about me. The thing that disturbed me most about this poster was there was a child, like not a real child, more of like a cartoon sort of, not even cartoon, but an artist rendering of a child that had a like gun target bullseye over the kid's face. And I was like, this is a little absurd. I don't know if it actually came from those people, because there was another group that was there as well. But they were there for that. This is the last time I really had to deal with any of that nonsense. It doesn't seem, because these people do not show up if I'm in like some sort of like non-community space or at like Pride. They never show up to Pride events. I've seen a couple people here and there at a Pride festival, but they mostly like to show up at like smaller places where they seem like they're the ones in numbers. But I have, protocol to follow from headquarters. So if I ever hear of something like this materializing, I immediately jump on my bandwagon of getting a hold of the people who show up to make a wall of love. So the kids don't need to see or hear any of this nonsense, and they can get into the space safely. Safely, but more so like not jarred by why there's people angry outside when they're going to have a fun time.
Tell us about the bomb threat, the most recent one that was in the news.
So we had heard that there was some suspicion. We knew people were going to come and be angry. And then we heard some other things that we weren't really sure. We just kind of brushed it off and like, this seems a little extra. I don't think this is going to happen. But even so, took it seriously enough that we had extra security measures in place. I wasn't even going to show up in drag. I took all of my things to the library the night before and woke up early to get ready, like behind the scenes in the library. So I would just appear in the room when the program was starting and I was ready to go. So I arrived at 9:00 and the police were doing a planned, just last minute double check just in case. And a dog alerted to a package and they evacuated the library. And then we were trying to get information and they said that we weren't even going to be allowed back into the library until after 1 p.m., which is when the program was going to start. And then all these other little things kept coming through. So by, I think it was 10:30, it was before 11 o'clock. We decided for everyone's safety, we're just going to cancel it and, wait around to find out what happened. And then these other threats came in later, around noon or so, and specifically named like where we were all like congregating in the city, which also really suspicious. Like, how do you all know that we're here right now? But it turned out that they were all, hope. It was a big giant hoax. Nothing was real. And they released information a couple of days after the fact that the package that had initially been alerted to was coloring books the library had ordered from the USDA for an Earth Day event. So long story short, we got canceled because of coloring books.
But the original threat was there.
Yes, the original threat was at the library. That you said that they had sent the package and then they had planted other devices throughout neighboring buildings, because it's kind of a big giant complex. I don't think you can get from one building to the next without going outside, minus one. And what was really upsetting is there's an annual like anime sci-fi convention that happens in Lancaster every year, and it happened to be that weekend, and they expanded it because it was so big last year that the main hotel up the street from the library contacted another one, a smaller one down the street next to the library, and the whole hotel had to be evacuated, and people who were attending the convention, like it disrupted everybody. Like, it didn't just disrupt us. Downtown Lancaster for like blocks was shut down for hours. People had to be evacuated out of their homes. That hotel that evacuated is supposed to be a safe space where people can congregate if something like this were to ever happen in some type of emergency situation. It was a mess.
So how has the city supported you since then, or how had the community as a whole?
The community as a whole has been fabulous. The exposure's been incredible, but exhausting. I haven't heard too much from like city officials. I know the mayor of Lancaster put out a very lovely statement. But these other people who started the hubbub with literal false information and just smear campaign haven't taken any sort of responsibility or accountability for what happened after the fact. They refused to take the blame for it when they were the ones who stirred the pot on purpose with false information about what I was doing in a library.
A few weeks ago, we talked to James Lantz, and he was doing a podcast about the trans suicides in Lancaster. Do you have anything to say about that or any insight?
I know from organizing this stuff and having all the meetings that we've been having leading up to it, and even afterwards, I met a lot of people who were friends with these beautiful humans, and it hurts my heart that there is still this much hate in the world that bogs people down to the point where they just don't want to be here anymore. And that's one of the main reasons I'm doing this program, because it's so important to teach children to just be kind. It doesn't cost anything. Like, everyone's different. When I first started doing the program, I love nature and flowers and things, and I had been taking like pictures of different flowers, and I was like scrolling through them one day, and this beautiful thought came to me, and I was like, I have to put a little collage together and write something. And because we as humans are all different shapes, sizes, colors, but we all need the same things to survive. We all need love. We all need care. We all need water. We need, and so do flowers. Flowers may look alike, but no flower is exactly the same as another flower. And I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing how I put it together. It was much more eloquent the way I wrote it, but we're all the same inside, and if I can instill lessons of kindness and love and caring to a younger generation, maybe something will click and the world can slowly become a better place.
Well, I totally agree with you, Amie, and I agree with you saying what you're doing is making a difference in a lot of young people's lives. So thank you so much for joining us, and keep up the fight.
Thank you, Amber.
Wow, dude, that was a pretty exciting interview. Thank you so much, Amie Vanité, for telling us all those stories. And now, speaking of regular stories or irregular stories, here comes Rocco Zamboni showing us something interesting this week.
Hello, ladies. How you doing? It's me, Rocco Zamboni. I just wanted to come by and tell you about this project I've been working on. Erotic poetry for nurses. That's right, especially for you nurses. Now, anyone can read it, of course, because it's just erotic stuff that makes you go, hey, I feel like a woman. And it makes your man say, yeah, you do. So, it's filled with passages of erotic excitement, passion, and making you feel like, You deserve something special, especially for being a nurse. You take care of people, I'm gonna take care of you. So it's not done yet. Don't get your panties in a bunch, okay? Now, it's gonna be out soon before Christmas. It'll probably be an e-book. E for erotic. Erotic. You know what I'm talking about. Just picture sitting back saying, I've been taking care of Mr. Johnson and his, bedpan all day. I need a little something for myself. So you sit back in the break room, you look at Erotic Poetry for Nurses by Rocco Zamboni. You sit back and you let me take care of you. My words will make you feel good. And if some guy wants to read it, hey, I don't discriminate, It's for you too. There's male nurses, I've seen you guys. You run around and work just as hard. Granted, it's geared towards something with breasts, but that's alright. We all got our thing. Oh, look. You can tell they read the book. They definitely read the book. So remember, ladies, men, if your patient is giving you a hard time, come to Rocco for an erotic rhyme. And I promise, it's gonna be alright. Okay? You stick with me, I got you.
Ooh la la.
Well, that was very educational and insane. That's all the time that we have for the show this week. I hope that you all learned something. I did. And we'll see you all next week. But before we go, here comes Boog and Shug.
How did Rusty Peen get his name?
I don't know. How did Rusty Peen get his name?
I don't know. I was asking you.
Someone must have given it to him.
I don't think so. That's how it got Rusty.